Before the endless conflict between the Alliance and the Horde, before emo edgelords and belligerent dragons, before kung fu pandas and whatever that was, before Lovecraftian horrors and demons from space, there was light, and where it faded and dimmed, there was void. These two primordial forces would clash, the light spilling out infinitely, and the void voraciously devouring all it left behind, until one infinitesimally small unit of proto-space-time, which we shall henceforth call a day, the endless battle triggered a series of colossal explosions that tore at the silky smooth fabric of creation, and birthed the physical universe as we know it. This made a lot of people very angry, and has been widely regarded as a bad move. The ensuing inferno of magic left in its wake an ever-expanding existence known as the Great Dark Beyond, in which the incredibly convoluted tale I'm going to attempt to feed you takes place. Outside the fringes of the GDB, another realm manifested itself using only the finest of unstable energies. This place was called the Twisting Nether, a tumultuous dimension of chaos and fire that would occasionally throw rocks at the neighbours' windows after a particularly bad tantrum. Where these incursions broke the borders between dimensions, reality in the physical universe would be warped and corrupted. The aftershock of this cosmic progenation flung shards of light out into the physical realm, spawning all sorts of weird and wonderful forms of life across the cosmos. In no particular order, the first of these races were the primordial elemental spirits of fire, earth, air, and water that revelled in the turmoil of creation on almost every world that formed. Second were the Naru, a race of sentient lighting fixtures composed purely of light that sought to, safeguard life wherever they could get their grubby little wind chimes on it. The third and most notable race born were the Titans, beings that gestated within the cores of a select number of planets as world souls before emerging as colossal bodies of arcane energy to stride across creation. These creatures were akin to gods that looked upon the wee babby universe's splendour and sought only to find others like them to share the view with. The first of these enormous sparkly bastards was the titan named aman'thul, who was, for all intents and purposes, Zeus. After his awakening, he wandered the universe in search of others of his kind, and although it took a while, he slowly amassed a group of titans devoted to his search that came to be known as the Pantheon! Yes, very dramatic. The Pantheon was constructed around aman'thul, with him taking the role of Highfather, leading his fellow titans known as Ionar the Lifebinder, Sargeras the Defender, khaz'goroth the World Shaper, Agrimar, Sargeras' bestie and lieutenant, Norgannon, Keeper of Magics and Lore, and Golganeth, Lord of the Skies and Oceans. Looks a bit like Big G and Agrimar ended up with the short straws to me, but I can't imagine it's particularly easy to divvy up celestial superpowers. After the forming of the Pantheon, the Titans bound themselves to a code of benevolence towards every world they found, and set about taming each and every one all across the GDB in order to determine if any world souls slept within. Firstly, they'd pacify the elementals warring across the planets, then shape the terrain to make everything look generally very pretty, and finally sprinkle a few billion lifeforms across the surface to plump out the existing population. Supposedly, this song and dance would coax out the nascent world soul and bring it to maturity. Mind you, it seems a little bit callous to spend ages making a lovely new home for millions of species, all the while hoping a new friend is going to pop out like a stripper in a cake. Unfortunately for the Titans, and rather fortunately for the cakes, most of the worlds the Pantheon ordered ended up being inert. Despite the rather questionable ethics concerning the world souls, the Pantheon vowed to keep these worlds safe by empowering the primitive species to protect the planets while they pissed off to make more friends. Not now, Pumpkin, Daddy's socialising. Additionally, they implanted the worlds with huge machines that acted as baby monitors so they could keep an eye on them whilst out and about. To aid in their observations, aman'thul hired a babysitter for his babysitters in the form of a race called the Constellar, who quite predictably looked like constellations. These watchmen would have access to full disciplinary action, including the well-known parenting strategy of scouring life from a world with the hope for the planet's ecosystem to reset itself. Oh, and no TV for a week. This strategy continued on for eons, but the longer the Pantheon searched, the fewer world souls they came across. Undaunted by their dwindling successes, the Pantheon ventured out further into the vast depths of creation, although in other corners of the universe, more sinister forces were working their slippery hentai magic. Even from the dawn of creation, there had existed a race of malevolent dark spirits that sought only destruction and chaos, enslaving worlds, accruing power, pushing toddlers, that kind of thing. These generally unpleasant chaps were born from the deepest darkness outside the universe, and thus named the Void Lords. For millennia, the Void Lads had watched the Pantheon going about their work, becoming envious of their power, and as a result, they hatched a plan to corrupt a Titan for their own ominous purposes. Fortunately, this mighty race was trapped beyond the veil of the GDB, and could not easily manifest themselves within the physical universe. They could exert some level of power over the lesser denizens that existed, but the Titans themselves proved impervious to any form of corruption. Lucky them. To circumvent this roadblock, the Void Lords pooled their abominable powers to create horrific monstrosities called Old Gods, who would be flung like some sort of eldritch baseball deep into the GDB, in the hopes that each would make contact with a vulnerable Titan world soul still deep in its pre-godhood nap time. Now, the Titans were well aware of the Void's energies, but had no actual knowledge of either the fleshy carbuncles systemically corrupting the universe, or the lurking Void Lords pulling their sinew. Their attention was focused on a more imminent threat, clad mostly in green and black. Unending hordes of demons, creatures born from the twisting nether with a hate boner for the rest of the universe. Oh yes, totally different from the thematically consistent forces of darkness we've just discussed. Demons come in a variety of flavours, but the most notable of them were the Nathrezim, known for using their cunning and deception to corrupt civilizations from within, and the Annihilan, who would besiege the worlds of the GDB with massive armies built from the lesser demons that they'd enslaved. In response to these demonic temper tantrums, the Pantheon followed the only reasonable course of action and dispatched their greatest warrior, the mighty and noble Sargeras. Spoiler alert, this did not end well. For eons, Sargeras travelled about the GDB in search of worlds soaked in the erratic and volatile energies, clearly having felt the touch of the twisting nether. Demons infested these worlds, and like a good exterminator, Sargeras set about thwacking them with a rolled-up godhood weekly, thus vanquishing the disorganised hordes wherever he found them. Sargeras' battles against the infestation of demons dragged on, and eventually he became aware that some of the demons had learned to wield the powers of the Void. Through these sorcerers, he discovered the existence of the Void Lords and their campaign to spread their inky black corruption across the universe. Sargeras could but speculate as to these malign entities' intentions before the demonic hordes had gotten their second wind and redoubled their efforts to destroy and pollute ever more worlds. Jesus, get a hobby. The withered and exhausted Titan came to the horrific realization that he'd fought and destroyed many of these demons before, and that they were being reborn from the twisting nether. The reality was that the only way to permanently destroy these aberrations was to slay them in either the nether itself or areas of the GDB saturated with fel. Unfortunately for Sargeras, he hadn't quite worked this out yet. In response to Sargeras' struggle to stem the tide of demons, the Pantheon sent out another Titan named Agramar to aid their champion in his quest. Agramar quickly became Sargeras' trusted lieutenant and gym bro, and thus the two fought and lifted side by side for millennia. With Agramar's aid in the war against the demons, Sargeras could devote time to studying the twisting nether for a more permanent solution to their problem. This solution would come in the form of a prison named Mardum inside the twisting nether that could contain the souls of the demons without allowing them to be reborn and continue on their conquest. Problem solved, right? Well, unfortunately, as the Titan Bros continued their campaign, Mardum suffered from a little, capacity problem. The prison eventually began to overflow, and the concentrated fel energies that spilled forth ripped the veil of the GDB and manifested Mardum in the physical realm as a colossal emerald star. As dangerous as a fit-to-burst prison of hellish demonic creatures appearing in the universe might be, this action did actually seem to stem the endless conflict and bring peace to the cosmos. Demonic incursions would still occur, if infrequently, but for the most part, Sargeras and Agramar had succeeded in their mission. The worst, however, was yet to come in all its slippery hentai glory. In this new era of peace, the Pantheon continued their search for world souls, whilst Sargeras and Agramar sought to dissolve the remaining demon forces scattered across the cosmos. The demon-hunting duo agreed to split up and look for clues so as to be able to protect more worlds, and thus went their separate ways after a presumably very manly bro hug. During this cleanup, Sargeras was drawn to a remote corner of the GDB where he discovered void energies emanating from a horribly twisted world. On this planet, he found none other than a host of the grim Lovecraftian horrors seeded by the Void Lords all those eons ago, the Old Gods, festering and boring into the skin of the world. To his dismay, Sargeras realised that the world he chanced upon was in fact a slumbering world soul, and he could hear the wee babby titan's nightmares brought on by either the perverse tendrils enveloping its vulnerable spirit, or, I don't know, maybe it ate some cheese before its nap. Through the interrogation of a group of Nathrezim that had come to bask in the Old God's powers, Sargeras discovered the Void Lord's true intentions. to corrupt a sleeping world soul before it awoke and grew to maturity, thus creating an unstoppable abomination that would consume everything in the known universe, like the Void had tried to do at the dawn of creation. In his anguish, Sargeras hastily decided to destroy the world soul, thus obliterating the planet and the old gods with it. Sargeras knew there could be other worlds touched by the Void, and immediately gathered the Pantheon to share this grisly knowledge and decide on a course of action. However, to his frustration, the Pantheon were more concerned with his rash decision to needlessly kill one of their own kin. The two sides argued on whether had Sargeras called for the Pantheon's aid, they might have been able to purify the poisoned world. But eventually, Sargeras himself realised his attempts to convince his kind were futile. #Sargeras did nothing wrong! The Pantheon hadn't seen the horrors of the Void and couldn't understand his actions. Even Agramar stood against his friend, convinced there was another way. Et tu, Brotus? Sargeras postured that the only way to truly defeat the Void was to scourge all life from the universe, thus removing any way for the Void Lords to incur upon creation. The Pantheon were horrified by this suggestion, and Eonar reminded Sargeras of their vow to protect life wherever it flourished. Bloody hippies! In light of the realisation that his kin would never understand the necessity of his actions, Sargeras made the decision to split from the Pantheon and pursue a solo career, eradicating all life in hopes that an empty, unliving universe would be better than one ruled by the Void. This was the last time the Pantheon would consider Sargeras as one of their own, and the next time they encountered him, it would be in battle. Ugh, there's always one in every family, isn't there? Hello again everybody, welcome back, and I guess welcome for the first time, I suppose, if this is the first instance of me wasting 10 minutes of your life. For those of you that are new here, these videos are meant to be kind of a light-hearted, more accessible approach to learning the lore of various games without soaking up an hour or two of your life. They're not exhaustive, and I do miss details that either I intend to cover in future videos or just aren't really crucial enough to make the cut. Not everyone enjoys the style, I'm no Nobble, but I hope you guys enjoyed this because frankly making it terrified me. I've had a lot of really good reactions to my Warframe stuff over the years, but breaking out into another community is pretty scary, particularly one as long-standing as Warcraft. So, pending my imminent lynching at the hands of the WoW community, this will probably be the first in a series of Lorecrafts I'm going to be running alongside other series. Relax, lads, Warframe ain't going anywhere. If you did, by some miracle, enjoy this, you can dump 1,000 valueless crystals to leave a like here, and if you'd like to see more of my mindless rambling, you can submit 10,000 here to subscribe, with an imperceptible chance for this fabulous mount dropping as a bonus. Again, thank you very much for watching, guys. I've been Luke, this has been Lorecraft, gonna have to get used to saying that, and you have been awesome. Later, nerds.